Ex-boyfriend invites me to his wedding to show off his rich fiancée, but my +1 steals the show. Dylan, 30, male, and I, 22, female, met while we used to work part-time at Starbucks. I was still in college at that time and was saving money to move out of my parents' house permanently, while he was paying off his student loans. His parents had a lot of debts due to their gambling habits and were unable to support him financially. Initially, we bonded over discussing our families, but eventually, we realized that we genuinely enjoyed spending time together. After graduating 2 years later, I had saved up enough money to move out and live on my own. Dylan, on the other hand, was still struggling with his student loans and had been struggling for a long time to move out of his parents' house, so I offered him to move in with me. Unfortunately, because of the debt, he couldn't even cover his part of the rent. I decided to cover 80% of the total rent so he would only have to pay the remaining 20%, and he readily agreed. Other than rent, we split the utility bills equally. Though Dylan and I had different jobs, his job was more hands-on, requiring him to be on-site for long hours, while I had a corporate job with a more relaxed schedule. My boss wasn't concerned about whether we work from the office or from home, as long as we meet our targets every month. Dylan's work schedule often prevented him from helping me around the house. As a result, I had to take care of the dishes, laundry, cleaning, and cooking. I didn't mind doing all of it since I understood how demanding his job was. However, I did ask him to take out the trash since he was always the last one to eat between us. Unfortunately, Dylan would always forget to do it, leaving me to take out the trash every morning. Once when I had to leave for work during the weekend. When I returned home, I found our entire place in disarray. The kitchen counter was a mess with overflowing dishes, empty food packets, and chocolate wrappers strewn all over. The laundry had piled up, and the trash had not been taken out. As you can imagine, I was beyond pissed. After a long day at work, I was exhausted and just wanted to rest. However, when I looked around the house, I couldn't relax knowing how messy it was. I spent the whole day cleaning up, hoping Dylan would notice and appreciate my efforts. When he finally arrived home, he greeted me with a hug and told me how much he missed me, but he didn't even seem to notice the difference in the house. He immediately sat down to watch his game, leaving me feeling unappreciated and frustrated. I burst into tears. I don't know if it was the tiredness, the sleeplessness, or his lack of appreciation for me, but I realized for the first time how little he thought of me. He glanced back and asked if something was wrong, but I shook my head, pretending to be fine, telling him that I was ready to go to bed. Before going, I reminded him once again to take out the trash, and he nodded in response. But, as you can probably guess, the next morning the trash was still there. I lost my temper when he came down to the kitchen and asked me for breakfast. I told him that he could cook for himself if he wanted to eat something. He said that I was being rude, and this is when I started yelling at him about how useless he was around the house. He looked as if he hadn't done anything wrong and asked me not to be so dramatic. I took a deep breath and asked him why he never took the trash out. He told me that he forgot to do it. I then asked him what he does around the house besides coming back home and sitting in front of the TV with a beer. He started to say how he was always tired after work and that he deserved to have his time. I nodded and agreed with his statements that he definitely needed his time to relax, but what about me then? I reminded him that after work, I come back home and start cooking for both of us. I clean the house, do our laundry, iron his shirts for the week, and the only thing I expect from him is to take out the trash. Dylan then told me that he never asked me to do any of these things. He continued to say that he had a very challenging job and he thought, as his girlfriend, I should understand that I needed to help him out. He even tried to justify that doing these things was not a big deal, as his mother did the same thing for his father. When I heard this, it really made me angry. I realized that despite working so hard around the house, I was letting him walk all over me, even though we weren't even married. I looked straight at him and told him that I wasn't going to do anything around the house to help him out. I was not his mother, and we were equals. I told him he needed to cook his own food, do his laundry, iron his shirts, take out his garbage, and clean up after himself. Dylan's eyes widened and he started to protest, but I held up a hand to make him stop. I told him that there was more to it. He also needed to pay 50% of the rent or move out. Dylan was shocked and asked me where this was coming from. I told him that I was tired of working so hard for him and not feeling appreciated. He obviously wanted to say more, but I walked out of the house as I was running late for work. This was the first time in my life I had ever set such strong boundaries, but I didn't feel guilty about it. I kept my word and only cleaned up after myself, not doing anything extra. It was satisfying to watch him run around the house trying to find clean clothes or iron his shirts before work. He didn't clean the utensils or take out his trash, hoping I would do it for him, but I refused to do it. Even when the dishes started to pile up and smell, I decided to eat from takeout boxes so I could easily dispose of my garbage without going into the kitchen. He tried to talk to me several times, insisting that I should be a good partner and take care of him, but I stayed firm and unyielding to his demands. When it was time to pay rent, I paid 50% of the amount to our landlord and informed her that Dylan would be paying the remaining 50%. He tried to come back home and argue with me, yelling that I should pay 80% like before, but I refused. I reminded him